Welcome to POLI-TRICKS, where Mercer Prescott and his band of eclectic cronies bringing you the news you can use as it pertains to the idiocracies in politics. That's right. Mercer Prescott and his band of eclectic cronies. I don't care if you're a libertarian or Democratic or Republican. About politics. The sun is key, and the key to your freedom is knowledge. Vote. Or your ass. Don't forget to vote. Tell someone you know who isn't voting to vote.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of POLI-TRICKS with Mercer Prescott and his band of eclectic cronies. Merc, do your thing.
All right. What's going on, Mr. Blue? Now, I will say one thing. I'm hoping that today's show won't be too dry, because the one thing I want to talk about is tax bill that dropped. I know I spoke a little bit about it on Saturday, but I mean, this thing is a catastrophe waiting to happen, you know. And before I start, there's one thing that's been thrown around a lot lately, especially in the face of corporate tax cuts and net neutrality, is the myth of the good corporation. So now people are like, well, Google and Netflix, they're the good corporations because they support net neutrality. Or, you know, this is a good corporation because they say that they're going to take that tax cut money or the corporate tax cuts and invest it. Let me put it to you in a language that everyone can easily understand. There is no such thing as good corporations. None. Because a corporation's goal is not to see you succeed. A corporation's goal is to make money. That is it. There is nothing more to that. Their goal is to make money. Okay? Just because you happen to be on the same side of the fence doesn't mean that you're friends. I've been with Netflix since 2002, right?
Damn, I didn't know they were around that long.
Yeah, back when they were only doing DVDs before they started streaming. Okay. If Netflix didn't need me anymore, they would just throw me under the bus because they're a corporation. So can a corporation do good things? Sure, absolutely. Can corporations donate to charity and, you know, stuff like that? Sure, absolutely. There's no denying that. But on its face, their only job is to make money, and you are just a means to an end. So remember that when your favorite corporation turns against you, because now there's no rules and they could do what they want to. Remember that. Don't be so disappointed. That's like saying, there's a good jackal, or there's a good cobra. No, the jackal will rip your balls off. The cobra will bite you the first chance it gets. So remember that. But I was looking into this whole these tax cuts, and it seemed familiar, you know, like I'd seen this someplace before, you know. Mm-hmm. If you go back to, and I know I sound like an old history teacher, but if you go back to the stock market crash of 1929, right, there were a lot of things that were pretty much familiar as to what's going on now, right? And the long and short of it is this, right? I had a whole big thing about the stock market crash, but there was one thing that caught my eye, right? This is from history.com, right? It says the crash followed an asset bubble. So since 1922, the stock market had gone up by nearly 20% a year. Everyone invested thanks to a financial invention called buying on margin. It allowed people to borrow money from their broker to buy stocks, and they only needed to put down between 10 and 20%. So think of it like this, Blue. Think of it like if you went to a casino, right? Mm-hmm. And you borrow money from the casino to gamble. So you say, listen, I put down $100, and then you lend me $1,500 or $1,000, right? And then you gamble. So if you win, that's good. But how often do you win in the casino?
Not often.
Right, exactly.
Now, there was this one time I was playing quarters. No, it was nickels, and I won $600, spent less than $20. That was a good day.
That's a lot of nickels, unless I'm thinking
No, they don't send out. You know, it's a credit thing. At that point, they're not going to send out $600 worth of nickels.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good day.
Haven't
won a single thing since. Done played lottery. Done played, been to casinos and off there on riverboats and down there in New Jersey. Nah, no more than $5, $6, $7. Just a little tease to get you in there a little bit more, and then bam, rob you blind.
Exactly. But you figure it like this, right? Because people had this on margin thing, right? Mm-hmm. It contributed to the whole thing with the Roaring 20s because people were borrowing money and they were investing, right? But the crash wiped people out. So they were forced to sell their businesses, sell their homes, cash in their life savings. And that's because when the stock market started to crash, the brokers called in their markers. So it's like if you're borrowing money, next thing you know, you're $80,000 in the hole, and now they come up to you and they're like, listen, we want our money. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do? You got to pay them, right? So people started scrambling to try and find ways to pay. They lost their faith in Wall Street, and you can't have a healthy economy without confidence in the market. So put it like this. By July 8th, the Dow was down to 41.22. So that was a 90% loss from its record high of close to 381.2. Mm-hmm. Now, right now, like the Dow right now is at 24,000, right? Now, granted, we're talking about the 1920s. That was almost 100 years ago, right? But imagine if the Dow in 2 days, if the Dow went from 24,000 to 800. That would be an absolute catastrophe. And imagine that you had borrowed money to buy stocks that were now worthless. Mm. And now they're saying, hey, listen, you got to pay. You remember the end of Trading Places?
Nah, a little dated, sorry.
It might be a little bit before your time. But basically, long story short, when the Duke brothers, when they thought they had the market cornered on orange juice, and Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd tricked them, and they spent all that money, and then they lost it all, mm-hmm. They had to, by the end of the day, they had to settle all their losses. So they had lost $390 million in a day, and then they were like, well, you got to pay. They were like, we don't have that kind of money. Well, we'll just sell your seats on the stock exchange, and then we'll just seize all your assets to make the payments. So it can be very brutal. So that's why people like me don't invest in Wall Street, because I don't trust them.
Right.
But a lot of people were, had that capital to, because they could borrow it, and that was just one of the reasons, right? Another reason was you had, and this goes into Glass-Steagall, right? With Glass-Steagall, the main thing was, and they made Glass-Steagall in 1933 after the stock market crash, it separated investment banks and commercial banks. So basically, long story short, they were not allowed to take your life savings and bet it in the stock market. So if you have a pension, right, they can't take your pension money and bet it in the stock market, because now those banks are separated. Now, of course, Glass-Steagall was repealed in 99, and not even 10 years later, we had another stock market crash. Right. One of the biggest things that, that helps these crashes along is deregulation. Because if people aren't paying attention, then banks could do what they want, and the next thing you know, you're dead in the water. Put it like this, Blue. And also the whole thing, I know people, like on the Republican side especially, right? They're like, well, the Republicans are looking out for us because now we pay less taxes. That's not true. All right. I have to, there's all these different types of taxes, right? So one tax I hear a lot is marginal tax rate, right? So let's say you make $100,000, right? And in 2010, right, I had a chart from 2010 that I found, all right? That puts you in the 28% tax bracket, right? So that means you make in between $82,000 and $171,000. So it's 28%, right? That does not mean that, and this I didn't know until I read up on it lately. It doesn't mean that, okay, you're in this tax bracket, so you just pay 28%, right? What it means is you go up each bracket. So, and this is going by 2010 numbers, right? So the first $8,350 you make, they tax it at 10%. So that's $835. Then the next $25,600, which brings you from $8,351 to $33,000. That's $3,840. So on and so forth, right? So by the time you get to $100,000, now if you were at 28%, they would have just taken $28,000, right? But it really only goes down to $21,000 because of how they do it. So it's a little bit more complex than people think. And the thing is, when people talk about going into another tax bracket, let's just say you make $82,250 a year, right? And you get a $100 raise, for argument's sake, right? So that would put you from the 25 to the 28% tax bracket. So you're not the only part of your money that's getting taxed at 28% is that $100 raise. You know what I mean? So it's kind of weird. Now with the new tax plan, right? They're eliminating some of these tax brackets. So without getting too much into the jargon of it, right? Put it like this: the top part of it is the most important part. The top and the bottom, right? It used to be like now the current tax rates. If you make between $0 and $19,500, $19,050, you're taxed at 10%. And then from $19,000 to $77,000, you're taxed at 15%. What they did now is that they take $0 to $90,000 and tax it at 12%. So if you're in that 15% bracket, you're getting a 3% tax cut. But if you were in that former 10% tax bracket, you're getting a 2% bump. So if you're in the lowest tax bracket, you're paying more money in taxes. Now, the only thing about that is, for the lower income folks, they are getting a bigger child tax credit, and then they will get a bigger I guess like deductible when they do their taxes, so it may even out, but we won't know yet until they get the bill finalized. Now the main thing is up at the top, right? If you make $480,000 under the current rate, anything over $480,000, you're paying 39.6%. If now to hit that 39.6%, you need to make over $1 million. So you're talking about an extra, what, $520,000 extra? That's escaping that top tax rate. So basically, the people who need the tax breaks the least are getting the bigger tax breaks. So they're basically lowering the amount of tax rates, but it's kind of lumping stuff together, you know. And of course, the people at the top are getting the bigger breaks. Figure it like this, right? And I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Back in 1944, right now, the top marginal tax rate is 39.6%, and that's staying as is, right? And I think that's according to both bills in the House and the Senate. In 1944, the top marginal tax rate was 91%. So let's just use these numbers, right? And put this in there. That means that for right now, if you made over $480,000, anything you made above that was taxed at 91%. Now I know what you're thinking.
What percent? I'm sorry.
91.
So if you made $1 million, you would have to pay back, I don't know, $910,000. I'm confused.
Now, so here's the thing, right? It's money you make over $1 million. So we'll use the current one, right? Mm-hmm. Anything you make up to $1 million, right? You're paying 35%. So let's just say you made $2 million, right? Mm-hmm. So anything up to anything up to $1 million, you go up the ladders as, each one. So some of it's taxed at 12%, some at 25%, and then between 260 and $1 million, you're taxed at 35%. But that second million, right? Mm-hmm. That would be taxed at 91% if we were going back to 1944 numbers.
Shit, that sounds crazy.
And I know.
So what's the point of being a millionaire if you gotta, even at the 35%? So I made $1 million. I had to pay $350,000. Now I'm a thousandaire again, right?
Right. Now keep one thing in mind though, and hold on, I probably should do this when I was doing my notes. If you took $1 million, and hold on here. Hold on, 1944 money.
All right. What's the question?
All right. So let's see. Oh, hold on. 1 million. Let's see what we got. So basically, if I know $1 million sounds like a lot, but you figure back in 1944, that had the buying power of $13 million. So in other words, that would still be for the super rich back then, right? So let's just say, like, if you took it in, I don't want to jumble it up, but let's just say it is a lot of money, a horrible amount of money. But it only when you made past a certain amount, you get taxed at that 91%. So in 1950, it stayed that way until between 1944 and 1951. In 52, it went up a little bit to 92%, right? And in 1954, it went down to 91%. It stayed that way until 1964, then it got slashed to 70%, right? And then it stayed that way until 1981, until a little-known movie actor, better-known president named Ronald Reagan, slashed it from 70% to 35%, right? Clinton bumped it up. Bush knocked it down a bit. Obama knocked it back up to 39.6, which is where it is now.
Right.
Right. Now, here's the thing. No one likes paying taxes. I don't like paying taxes. Do you like paying taxes?
Who likes paying taxes?
Nobody.
I mean, I wouldn't mind as much if I knew it was being used righteously. These crazy salaries, the things they spend money on, I forgot what they call it, pig money or whatever, the money that's spent on stupid shit.
Right. The pork spending.
There you go.
And that's the thing. You get people who get extra righteous and they say, well, I don't want my money used for abortions. Yeah, but your money is used so we can send drones to kill kids in Yemen. So what's the fucking difference? Nobody really knows what that money is being spent on, at least on the state level. On the federal level, we got a giant chart that says we spend 57% of our tax money on the military. And we're talking about billions and billions of dollars on the military every year. We spend 6% on education. We spend 2% on agriculture and food stamps. So the same people who are saying, well, I don't want my money being spent on abortions, there's a whole church full of dead kids that were already alive. I know I don't want to get into that whole debate over whether a fetus is alive or not. I don't want to get into that, even though I brought it up. But I just felt myself going down that road, and I was just like, okay, let me get off that road. But if people knew that their taxes were going to what they were supposed to be going to, I'm not saying people would say, here, take more of my money, but they wouldn't mind so much paying taxes if they knew that it was going to good things, right? But the thing is, you hear about, and then you have the Republicans themselves who get on and say, government's not the answer. That was Reagan's catchphrase. Government is not the answer. And what the fuck are you in the government for? Why are you running for office if government is not the answer? And your job is not to make it better, but to profit off of it. That's the thing. You know, it kind of kills me. But the thing is, when that top marginal tax rate was at 91%, the country was not, you know, couldn't be doing better. I mean, we were in the Great Depression for 10 years, right? It took World War II to get our manufacturing back up to the point where we can get back on our feet. And that top marginal tax rate kept us on our feet. And we had little bumps and hiccups here and there. But for the most part, we inflation in the 70s and 80s, but for the most part, we were good until that top marginal tax rate went down to 35%. And that's when the shit really started to hit the fan. Because you can't, it's kind of like saying, hey, I want to save up to buy a car, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my boss and take a $10,000 pay cut. There's no money in the coffers to buy a car if you're making less money. And especially if you elect to make less money. The Bush tax cuts, right, added $1.3 trillion to the deficit. And Bush wasn't president that long ago. 1.3 trillion, and then this tax bill is going to add another 1.3 trillion to the deficit over 10 years, and cut Medicaid and cut Medicare. And then when they're done with that, they're going to come after our Social Security, even though Social Security is not part of the budget. If you look at the discretionary spending wheel, there's no slot in there for Social Security. That's because that's money that we put into that account for us, that every now and then the government borrows from.
Right.
You know. And you have people cheering for this tax cut. One of my friends, he has these Republican trolls on his damn feed, and they're like, I can't wait for 2018. Republicans are going to take over. I'm like, really? You really think that? I mean, don't get me wrong. The Democrats are incompetent, and they'll find a way to screw this up because it's just what they do. You know. But they can't possibly think that these tax cuts are a good thing. Well, they can because Fox News told them it was. That's the thing. Blue, you ever see a movie called The Big Short?
I have.
Yeah. It's still on Netflix. I was watching it the other day, and I forgot how much of a great movie that was.
But yet you did not watch The Punisher. Interesting.
No, not yet. I'm still trying. I haven't even watched Daredevil season 2 yet, so I definitely don't want to.
You got to start there. Yeah.
I definitely don't want to jump the gun. I already did that with the Defenders, so I don't want to jump the gun anymore. But in The Big Short, in the beginning, right? They talked about Louis Renari, the banker from Salomon Brothers, who had the whole idea about mortgage-backed securities, right? And the mortgage-backed securities were pretty much, they take all these mortgages, because mortgages are safe, right? 30-year fixed mortgage or what have you, and it's just, boring, low yield, right? They take thousands of them and they bundle them together, right? So it's a big yield, but still a small risk, because like they said in the movie, who in the hell doesn't pay their mortgage, right? And they were selling these packages to pensioners. So if you had somebody who ran a pension fund and they're looking for a way to invest in money, and you tell them, hey, I got thousands of these low-risk mortgages that are AAA rated, right? That's going to get you a big return with very little risk. Of course, you're going to bet on that, right? But there was a problem. The problem was, yeah, these bankers are making big money off of these packages, but there's only but so many of these mortgages to go around. And now with the economy getting worse, a lot less people were buying houses. So what they did was they kind of used that AAA rating as kind of like a wrapper. And it was kind of like saying, okay, we're giving out these gold bars to these pension funds, right? Now, what happens when you start to run low on gold? You just, we'll just paint these silver bars gold and sell that. And when there's no more silver, we'll paint these bronze bars gold. No more bronze? We'll just use copper. No more copper. We'll just use lead. You know what I mean? These, they were selling these packages as AAA, right? But they were packed with subprime mortgages. So subprime mortgages were like basically if somebody had a 550 credit rating and they bought a 4-bedroom house.
Right.
You know? Because one of my favorite parts in that movie was when Steve Carell, he was my favorite character in that whole movie, was when he was, he talked to, I always remember him as his character from New Girl. I don't know if you've ever watched New Girl, but
Nah, it's not my Steve. Do you see what color my skin is, baby?
I still watch it. It was kind of funny. I watched like a season or 2 of it. But one of the guys from New Girl is on there. And they basically just admitted to Steve Carell and his folks that, like, yeah, we pretty much sell houses to whoever wants to buy them. We don't check their credit. We don't do anything. We just tell them, hey, you're going to get a house. And then we just give them papers and they sign it. Right? And one of the guys said that, yeah, you know, one of the people who he likes to sell to is strippers because they always have cash on them. Right? So they go to there's a part where he goes to the strip club. And he's talking to the stripper about the purchases that she made. So she was saying, yeah, well, you know, I have a house. It's got 2 loans on it. You know, only had to put down 5% and all this other stuff. And Steve Carell's trying to tell her, look, here's the thing. If the housing market doesn't go up, you can't refinance. So you're stuck with those loans. And then when that introductory rate goes away, your mortgage payments are going to go up by 200 to 300%. So then she was like, holy shit, what am I going to do with all these loans? They said, wait a minute, you have a house with 2 loans on it, right? She said, no, I have 5 houses in a condo with 2 loans each on them. So that's 6 properties, 12 loans that are about to balloon like crazy. So there were a couple of characters in the show, Steve Carell's folks, what's his name, Christian Bale's folks, the other 2 young guys, who kind of read the tea leaves and said, hey, there's about to be a housing bubble. They're selling these AAA mortgages that are just packed with garbage. So if we bet against them, once the housing market flops, we'll make billions of dollars. And that's exactly what they did. But the thing is, how come only a handful of people could see that and no one else could see it? Another one of my favorite parts in that movie is when Christian Bale's character was just going to all these banks and buying hundreds of millions of dollars in credit default swaps. And the banks would, one of them was literally like, if you're willing to throw your money away, we'll take it. And this is my like 3rd time seeing it. So every time I see that part where the bank's just like, oh, we'll take your money, I am literally laughing my ass off because I know it's going to happen in the end. In the end, the housing market's going to collapse and they're going to walk away with billions and the banks are going to be in trouble. But here's the big thing though, right? You remember what happened in 2008, right before Obama took office. The banks failed. During the stock market crash, by the early 30s, just over half of all U.S. banks failed. Half of the banks in the country failed. The problem is, back then there were just a lot of little banks, right? Now you have all these big banks because they buy up all these other banks. I remember reading a case study on JP Morgan Chase. How because they buy all these smaller bank chains, right? So they had all these different bank chains with all these different systems, computer systems. So it cost them $1 billion to revamp them all into one system. That's how many banks they had. And now we had a bigger problem. Back then in the 30s, if a small bank failed, that small bank failed. People lost their money. You just moved on. Now you have these banks, and what did they call it, Blue? Too big to fail. They said these banks are too big to fail, and then they had to bail them out. So you figure, and this is the part where I say
bail
this.
them out when the American people need to bail them out. I think it would cost a lot less if we were bailed out. Watch out now, West.
It would cost a lot less, and they'd be more appreciative. Because then that's where your patriotism comes in. I hate these stupid motherfuckers who think that patriotism is, you have to stand at attention at the flag. The creepiest thing I'd ever seen was a video of a guy. He was a gymnast, right? And I think I want to say he was a pole vaulter. So he's getting ready to do his pole vault thing. So you know how fast they run, right? And then, like, the national anthem started playing, and right in the middle of his run, he hears the national anthem, he stops running, and then, like, salutes the flag. I guess it was a flag someplace who's saluting it. And people were like, oh my God, he's a real patriot. Like, first of all, he's a fucking dumbass, because he probably could have torn his ACL stopping so short during that run. Okay? Second of all, who gives a shit, right? If he's saluting the flag or not, because he used to be a veteran. And I'm not trying to be anti-patriotic. I'm just saying, if the American government had said, well, the banks fucked this up, so let them fend for themselves. We're going to help out all the people who got, who were the victims of this. Now all the people who are living in their cars, living in cardboard boxes, living in shelters, living in churches, because they lost everything because of this whole subprime mortgage catastrophe, we're going to help them and not the banks. That would make me patriotic. Because if your country is doing something right, that's what makes me want to put my hand on my heart and salute Old Glory. Not because I fucking have to. I don't gotta do shit. Okay? So, it's absolutely ridiculous, but you are right. Why didn't they just bail out the people? So it's kind of like a double whammy. It's like I said before. It's like if somebody breaks into your house, Blue, and steals everything you own, right? And then you have to bail them out of jail, and you got to pay their court fees. You would be furious, right? That's exactly what we did. These people robbed us blind. Nobody went to prison. Like, when people talk about Obama and they say they make up goofy shit about Obama to be mad at them about, one of the things to be mad at them about is, hey, why weren't they putting these bankers in jail? In Iceland, I think it was Iceland, when bankers caused a collapse over there, those bankers went to prison. Not in America. Nope. It's like they said on the Boondocks, when Ed Asner's character was talking with his Chinese counterpart, and he was like, America's an amazing place. He said, in China, if you lost $1 billion, they'd execute you. But in America, you lose $1 billion, they give you $1 billion more. It's absolutely insane. But all these banks got bailed out, and the people got screwed. So when people talk about patriotism, I'm just like, you know what? They're like the fakest patriots, because they don't really know what true patriotism is. Blind patriotism is just fanaticism, pretty much. Why would I have pride in my country if my country's not doing things to let me have pride in it? So right now, Orrin Hatch, I hate to be a bastard about it, but every time I see Orrin Hatch in an article and it's not his obituary, I'm mad. But you can live too long, right? I think Orrin Hatch has lived too long. That son of a bitch actually said that when they had it wasn't CHIP, Child Health Insurance Program. I think it was some program that helps children. And Orrin Hatch said that there's no money for the program. Sure there is. We're the richest country in the world. Of course there's money for the program. We just gave the military an extra $70 billion per year to do God knows what. And there's no money for the children? I think he's lived too long. And I'm not wishing death on Orrin Hatch, but if he were to die, I'd be okay. Like, I'm not gonna, I won't even say anything snarky about him on Facebook. I'll just be like, you know what? Yeah, he's an old man. These things happen. And it's not because, and it's basically just because he's just a really evil guy who pretends to be righteous and religious. He's not a religious fanatic like some of the others. But they'll cite God in a minute, and I'm just like, nothing you do is godly. Nothing. You know what? If Jesus was alive, you know what he would do? He'd beat you with a bullwhip, just like he beat those bankers, the money changers that were using God's temple as a bank. That's what he would do if he was alive. You think Jesus would come back from the dead and give these guys a high five? Jesus would probably knock their fucking jaws loose. Not that I would know. I've never read the Bible. I'm just saying, from what little I know. So, but let me ask you a question, Blue.
Yeah.
Have you heard about the case about? And I should have been more prepared. I thought we'd have more guests on. I didn't write enough, but there was a case that bothered me. It was a Mexican citizen. He was in the country illegally. He ended up shooting a woman in the back.
Oh.
And Trump was talking about this case since before he was president. They had his trial, and he was actually found innocent of murder. Now, my thing is this, right? And of course, Trump blew a gasket on Twitter and started blaming Obama and how soft he is on immigration. Here's the thing about that. Mm-hmm. All these guys who talk about how soft Obama is on immigration, what was one of Obama's nicknames, if you remember?
Obama Hussein?
No. That's just his middle name. They would call him the deporter in chief. He actually broke a record in his first term, a record number of deportations under Obama. Obama added, what was it? It was thousands and thousands of new Border Patrol cops under his watch. That's why he was always getting picketed. He was always getting protested by Hispanic youth because they were just deporting people like crazy. So basically, Obama is soft on immigration if you don't pay attention to what's going on. Like if you just keep your eyes closed and put your hands over your ears and just goes la 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 la, then Obama is soft on immigration. But if you look at what he's actually done, he's actually been a tyrant on immigration. He calmed down a lot in the second term and even started the DREAM Act to help kids who were brought to the country when they were too young to make those decisions on their own.
Right.
But before, Katz was scrambling. Obama was coming to get you. If you were a Somali pirate or an illegal immigrant, Obama was coming to get you. Ah, those poor Somali pirates. No one misses them. But
I'm the captain of this ship.
But the thing was, right, and this case intrigued me for one reason, and there's one thing I was trying to find out. Basically, how the story went was, supposedly the guy found a gun wrapped in cloth by the pier, right? It was a machine pistol, and I guess he was handling it, and it went off. So the bullet ricocheted and hit this girl in the back. She was walking with her dad. And it hit her right in the back, and it hit like some artery or something like that, and she bled out pretty quickly.
Oh, man.
Right. Now, the ME's office confirmed that he didn't just walk up and shoot her, that the bullet really did ricochet. Right? There were two things about the story. Number one, the cops kind of lied to get him to confess. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that. As long as they didn't whoop his ass. But if because supposedly the cops told him that they had the gun and had his DNA on it, and then he just said, fine, I had the gun, right? Because after it went off, he threw the gun back in the water, and of course they found it. So they probably didn't really even have his DNA on it, but, it was an accident. Now, here's the thing, and this is the part I was trying to find out. If they had, I think they were trying to get him for murder, and the jury wouldn't convict on murder. So basically, he is going back to prison for the gun charge, for having the gun, right? Because it was a machine pistol. I think machine pistols are illegal. Mm-hmm. So, basically, he's going in for that gun.
You saying he just found a gun happenstance? I mean, really? Who finds a machine gun just chilling, hanging out?
A machine pistol? Probably somebody who was trying to get rid of it and probably just had to walk away from it too soon. Because he said it was wrapped in cloth. Yeah, it sounds like bullshit. But the thing is, he had no motive. Why wouldn't
you be like, hey, what's in this cloth? Oh, well, let's see what's in this dirty, nasty cloth.
Some people are curious like that. I'm not.
I'd be scared. I'd be scared as shit. You know what I'm
saying? My thing is this. If I had unwrapped that thing and found it and saw a gun, I might have just thrown it right in the water and just walked away. Like, damn that shit. You ain't getting me. I'm not catching all the bodies that gun got. But in any event, he had the machine pistol, and supposedly that type of gun, from what they said, doesn't have a safety, right? And they supposedly have hair triggers. That's what the ballistics folks were saying, right? So basically, everything that they said geared toward, hey, this was an accident. Because it wasn't like he just walked up and just shot this girl in the back for no reason. It wasn't like he robbed him. She was far away. Right? But they wouldn't convict on murder. So my thing was, I was trying to find out that none of the articles I read was talking about was manslaughter on the table. Because I have to tell you, hindsight is always 20/20. Right? That goes without saying. If I was on that jury and murder was on the table and I knew everything that was presented to me, there would be no way I can convict this guy on murder. But if manslaughter was on the table, yeah, I could convict on manslaughter for that. And I'm taking him being an illegal immigrant totally off the table, trying to be objective here, right? Because that's what Trump is doing. Trump is trying to pump up the whole illegal immigrant thing, right? Oh, he's a legal immigrant, he's a criminal. But the truth of the matter is, that could have happened to anybody. Now, what if it was some dumbass teenager who picked up that gun and shot that girl? Would they have felt the same way?
Right.
Right.
Some lily white in Maine, like that one senator was talking about. You see the problem with all these drug epidemic here in Maine? It's those I think he said Mexicans or Browns or somebody like that coming into our state.
Fucking our women.
Making them mulatto babies.
How is Paul LePage still governor over there? Jesus Christ, he is. I can't even call him a pig because pigs are delicious.
Tell you, it's just like elections, off what we call off-year elections or elections that aren't presidential, like regular elections. I mean, I remember I told y'all what happened when I voted. I voted like late that night, like almost maybe 20 minutes before closing. I was only like the 187th person to vote that day. Now, I ain't saying a lot of people probably didn't pre-vote, but I think a lot of people pre-voted in that district.
I would vote early in presidential elections because I voted early in this one. Mm-hmm. But for midterms, I normally don't vote early. I vote on that day because, like you said, there's usually not really a line. And it's funny, when I voted in my local elections here in town, I was sick that day. I didn't even go to work. I was sick as a dog. But I just figured I have to go to the supermarket anyway because I have no food. The firehouse is on the way, but I was in and out. I went in, I showed the lady my voter card because it's my first time voting in that district. I didn't even need it because she already had my name. And then I voted and I was on my way. But nobody. And granted, you know I'm an early bird, so I was there like 8 o'clock in the morning. and the polls have been open for an hour. But no, for midterms, nah, I never vote early because there's usually never a line.
Right. Well, there you go. I mean, and I live in a pretty big area. I live on the South Point side, so there's a lot of people that live over here. So that's just like that guy, you know. Their voting machines might be really spread out since the population is really low. It's not going to get a lot of people that go against him.
Yeah.
Or come out to say, like, hey, we're going to get this guy out of here. Because a lot of people who say, oh, I don't like that guy, be the main people who don't vote. That's really, you know what? That's crazy how that works out. No, not you. I'm not saying in general.
No,
but they really oppose something. It's like they sit back like, well, I ain't voting. Like, you're not voting. Well, you're the main one who needs to vote because you don't want this in effect. And be the main one complaining. Oh, they do this, they do that. Did you vote? No, then shut the fuck up, ho.
My friend Sean, he's got people like that on his page. He's like, well, I didn't like Hillary or Bernie or anybody.
Me neither.
And neither did I.
It probably wouldn't have been better with Hillary. I admit that, but I promise you, it would have been a very different reality than what we're experiencing now. Yeah, we might be in the middle of a third war. It might be something, but I promise you, to be significantly different. The Matrix tells me this.
Right. For me, my only problem is, aside from the extra wars we would have been in, it would have been the same. Now, with Trump, it's just worse. You know, it's just regressive. You know, we're just steadily marching backwards.
It's like he's fast-tracking us. I think Hillary would have eventually got us here. I think Trump has done more damage in almost a year than what Hillary would have been able to do in 4 years. Because I think she still had some nurturing, some compassion to her that she wouldn't have done what we see now. But she would have had a lot of opposition, too. She would have been like Obama's first term, where he didn't get a lot done because the Republicans were so thick and be like, man, fuck this dude. You ain't getting shit past this gate. And that's why he has so many executive orders instead. Right.
And he still hasn't written as many executive orders as somebody like Reagan. Like, Reagan wrote like hundreds and hundreds of executive orders. He was crazy with the executive orders. But, you know, he's a Republican, so other Republicans don't care. You know. And speaking of Republicans not caring, the whole thing with Roy Moore, Trump gave an even stronger endorsement of Roy Moore. And they did a poll, like 45% of people in Alabama, voters in Alabama, they're pretty much just like, yeah, we're going to vote for Roy Moore. We don't care. Right. Because like I said, they put ideology over reality. But reality usually wins every time. So I think I posted on my Facebook page, it showed all these Trump fans looking like coal miners. And they were like, you know what? These guys are fucking psyched about that luxury jet tax. I mean, the rebate, being able to ride off their luxury jets.
Must be nice. I wrote a song about it. When here it go. Must be nice. That's all I got so far.
But I mean, these people are suckers, man. I mean, it's just like, if you voted for Trump and you regret it, I'm still mad at you, but I'm not going to hold it against you forever, you know? Because at least you saw the error of your ways.
You've been holding it against them for a while now, buddy. So a year into the game.
But it's not going to be forever, though.
Okay.
It ain't going to be forever. If they regret, but a lot of people I know that voted for Trump.
I think they're the ones that are smart enough are punishing themselves, and that should be good enough.
Right.
The ones that aren't so smart, go Trump, go Trump. If you are still saying go Trump right now, I'm going to cough it up to two things: low intelligence or mental health disorder. Or you're just super uber rich and it's only benefiting you anyway, but that's only like 1%. So I can't even look at those cats.
Right. You know, they had one dude. MSNBC always has these round tables with these Trump fans, and they keep talking to him periodically. And one dude, he's a Jamaican dude too. Mm-hmm. He was saying that if Jesus himself came off the cross and told him that Trump was involved with Russia, he said, I'd have to go talk to Mr. Trump and find out what's really going on. Like, he wouldn't even believe Jesus. And Stephen Colbert is funny. He was like, when he was talking about that guy, he was like, you know, Jesus wouldn't be coming off the cross because, you know, Easter. But that's how delusional these guys are about Trump. And Trump has not shown in any, well, he hasn't really written any bills. He just writes executive orders, which is just repealing all of Obama's stuff. But nothing he's done has helped anybody but him and his family. He and his family stand to make at least $1 billion off this tax bill, and that's just the estate tax. That's not even all the other stuff. Here's one thing. I mentioned this on Saturday, right? One of the big things that's going to happen with this tax bill is that when a catastrophe happens, and it will happen, mark my words on that, not because I wanted to, because that's just what history says. We're like in a loop, you know, with Republicans and this whole thing. It's like it's a glitch in the matrix, you know. It just, the same shit keeps happening over and over again. When this catastrophe happens, they're not going to say, hey, at least Ronald Reagan had the wherewithal to say, hey, we did this $275 billion tax cut back in the 80s when $275 billion was about the equivalent of $1 trillion. And he said, listen, he didn't say it like this, of course, but he was like, yeah, I kind of fucked this up, so here's what we're going to do. He didn't raise the tax rate, but he started closing a lot of loopholes. So out of the $275 billion, over the next 6 or 7 years, they recouped about 120, 130 billion of it in closing all those tax loopholes. But it still wasn't enough. And then when Bush Sr. came into office, even though his slogan was, read my lips, no new taxes, he had to actually raise taxes, or else there would have been a Great Recession a lot earlier than 2008. But you figure one of the things that drove, even back to the stock market crash in 1929, was wages, stagnant wages. You know, back then they didn't even have, like, I don't even think back then they didn't even have child labor laws. So little kids could actually work, like jobs, you know, because there were no child labor laws. So that was another thing that really led to, I mean, there were so many different factors to each of these crashes, right? So there's no one thing that led to the stock market, led to the Great Depression, but the stock market crash was like, oh, you're drowning? Here's an anchor, splash. You know, but there was but it was already coming. The Great Depression, it was already coming. You know, and the stock market crash just accelerated. But one of the things was stagnant wages, low wages. You know, people didn't have money to spend. And the same thing is happening now. The federal minimum wage is $7.75. There is no state in this country where you can get a 2-bedroom apartment for $7.75 an hour. I think there is maybe like 2 counties where you can get like a 1-bedroom apartment for that money, but not a 2-bedroom. You know, you can't live off of $7.75 an hour. And until recently, that was the minimum wage in New York. In a place where a little rat trap apartment in Brooklyn, I heard a joke on of all places, the Muppet Show. They're like, his apartment is so small, all the mice in there are hunchback because there's no room for them to walk. And a rat trap apartment in Brooklyn would probably cost you $2,000 a month for like a studio apartment. And up until a while ago, their minimum wage was $7.75 an hour, which is insane, right? But I mean, I don't even have to say I told you so. I mean, people are smart. Well, Republicans aren't, but people in general are smart, and a lot of them have lived through Reaganomics. They lived through 2008. You know, they know what's coming. And they're bracing for it, I hope, you know. But the problem is with the Republican vote. You know being a Republican voter is like, and I don't know if I mentioned this on Saturday. It's like if I gave you a mystery book, right? And chapter 1 of the mystery book says the butler did it, and all of chapter 1 basically details at great length how the butler did it, how he committed all the crimes, how he killed all these people. But then you go through the book and you read the other 300 pages. And when you get to the end, you're like, oh my God, the butler did it. Wow, I did not see that coming. That's what being a Republican voter is like. They told you the end of the fucking story and you still can't figure it out. You get to the end and you're like, holy shit, how did that happen? How the fuck you mean how'd that happen? They told you that was going to happen. Mitch McConnell, Yertle the Turtle himself, got up there and told people if we don't pass these tax cuts, they're going to cut, the donors are going to cut us off. The donors themselves said if they don't pass tax cuts, we're cutting off the piggy bank.
Right, no doubt.
They told them that. And some dirt farmer in Boise, Idaho was like, rubbing his hands together like, oh, I can't wait for these tax cuts. For what? You're not going to get shit, you fucking sodbuster. There's no way. Wow. I don't understand these people.
Like, because the matrix is broken, maybe they're not to be understood.
I'm like, I was going to say, is there lead in their drinking water, but that's an insult to the people of Flint, Michigan, who still have poisoned drinking water.
Respect. Shit, we do here in Durham. Don't be, and y'all in Raleigh. Just because we don't have lead necessarily, we got some other shit. Boy, I'm trying to. I noticed that. I told you that water report. Get the water report from your water company. Just ask them, request it. They'll send it to you in the mail. The results were.
When I lived in Raleigh, I
approve or disapprove.
Yeah, I don't drink that water. When I lived in Raleigh, oh God, you could just taste the chemicals in there.
Right.
So I was just like, I mean, if it's not boiled, I ain't drinking it. And even then.
Exactly, I promise you. A lot of stuff that you ain't gonna boil out. Now, if you, what they call it, distill it, and the condensation falls to the side, and you collect that water, maybe.
Yeah, man. But I mean, the fact that these dumbass people still believe in trickle-down economics. Louis Black was on Stephen Colbert recently. Mm-hmm. And he said something I thought was hilarious and true at the same time. He says, you want to run an experiment on trickle-down economics? Here's the thing. Drink 20 beers, right? And then wet your pants. And then take a cup and put it down near your leg and see how long it takes to fill that cup. That's trickle-down economics. It's not getting down to where you are. Mm-hmm. It's never going to get there. I remember, I think I know we're almost out of time, but I remember I didn't talk much about the Libya slave trade because I'm very weak on world affairs, horribly weak on world affairs. Yeah. So I didn't really talk about Libya, right? Slave trade. Right. And but I will tell you a conversation I had with a cabbie. He was from Ghana himself, right? Yeah, so this is during the election, and we were talking. Politics was on the radio. We started talking about Africa, and he asked me a question. I'll never forget this. He asked me. We were talking about Libya, right? Because I think it came up in the as in one of the debates. All right. And he asked me. He was like, "Have you ever met?" I mean, he said, "I'm from Ghana. I'm pretty sure you met people from all over Africa, right?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "I have." And he said, "Have you ever met anybody from Libya?" And I thought about it for a while, and I was like, no, I haven't. And he said, that's because even though people aren't doing so well in Libya, they don't leave. Because there, and this is his words, trickle-down economics actually worked. And the money really did go down to all the nooks and crannies down there in Libya. Right. So I know Gaddafi wasn't the greatest man alive, but he made the trains run on time. And I know that's a glib interpretation of Gaddafi, right? But look what happened without Gaddafi. Now there's a motherfucking slave trade in Libya. And here's my thing. I was telling my friend yesterday, do I think that Hillary Clinton's plan was to start a slave trade in Libya? No. No, I don't. But you would think that after Iraq, after Afghanistan, after Iran,
right,
the consequence of removing people in power over there and not having a plan afterwards, you would think that Hillary would have learned her lesson and just left Libya alone, especially since Gaddafi has no nukes anymore and he was no threat. I know there were other reasons why they wanted to get rid of Gaddafi, you know, economic reasons, but now there's a slave trade. Thanks, Hillary. Well, really thanks, Obama, but Obama already said that Libya was his greatest regret as president, because it really wasn't Obama's intent to interfere in Libya. It was Hillary, when she was Secretary of State, that nudged him toward Libya, you know. So it's just
hindsight's 2020.
Yeah, it's always 2020. Unfortunately, I wish our foresight was 2020.
That's what I'm working on. That's exactly what I'm working on.
Yeah. I'll put it like this. That's why I couldn't be president, because they'd have me assassinated. Because the first thing I would do is...
Because you're black. Yeah, you're right.
Honestly, the first thing I would do was just tell Israel, you're on your own. Tell Saudi Arabia, lose my number, and just call all our troops home. That's in the Middle East, because we've never helped.
And that's what I would do as president. I'd be like, I'm sorry. I love y'all, the world, but we got to pull it in a little bit. We really need to start focusing on ourselves. We keep on, our propaganda promotes we're the best country in the whole world. I think we're just talking this to be talking these days. I would want to get us to that point where we actually are, where we're seeing that. I want to be like Sweden, even though Sweden don't like black people. I want to be like a Sweden that likes black people, where, you know, it's just like the money is working and the healthcare is working and the vocations are working and the housing market is working. And I walk by empty buildings every day, large empty government buildings. I was like, you know, there's so many homeless people here. Why they can't refurbish the inside, make them like little mini apartments and get the people off the streets, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that, you know what I mean? Instead of having an empty building that's just there, that's still getting electricity for some reason, but just there, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. There's actually more empty buildings, empty houses, than there are homeless people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Say that, but
no, there are.
In Detroit, that's true.
Right. But I didn't know that, and I was just like, I need to find the source on that. But there really is, because just like, I mean, a lot of them have been empty since the. But the problem is, it's not like they're just sitting there, just vacant and unowned. Some of them are owned by banks because they foreclosed on people.
Right.
You know, some of them are bought by foreign entities looking to launder their money.
Right.
You know, LA has a huge housing problem because of that.
Right.
And even though it's illegal, they pay companies to make it look as if people live there. That's not an exaggeration. Right. Because it's really illegal for them to buy a house if you live in another country and just have it vacant and have nobody living in it. So yeah, you figure, what was it? I'm trying to remember the name of the bill. But when they wanted free college and free kindergarten for everybody, I know what that means. But real quick, when they wanted free kindergarten and free pre-K and free college, and then they said it was going to cost $150 billion. They said that was too much money. Now they're going to give away $1.3 trillion to the rich. And then Orrin Hatch is going to come and bring his Crypt Keeper ass out there and just say, oh, there's no money for the children.
There you go.
He's lived too long, I think. Him and Keith Richards, but at least Keith
hey, that's his new name, Crypt Keeper. I like that. You think the Crypt Keeper has lived too long?
Ooh, Orrin Hatch, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm calling him Crypt Keeper. But yeah, you call him whoever you want to call him. I'm calling him the Crypt Keeper.
I think to say he's lived too long, that's not fair. He's outlived his usefulness. If he ever had a usefulness. Well, he's only useful to the big money donors.
This administration is basically a slap in the face of the world saying, you are broken, and we have to heal ourselves. We have to fix it.
Yeah.
In my opinion. We are broken. There's no way we should be where we're at today. And what's going on is what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yep. Exactly.
We are definitively broken.
I mean, we're the richest country in the world, but only 1% of the people have all the money.
Right.
You figure the Waltons have more money than, like, what, 30, 40% of the country? So, and you figure we're in a country that's supposed to be the richest in the world, and half the country is making $30,000 a year. So something's got to give. I was telling my friend yesterday before we wrap it up, I'm like, I said that if it were possible, I know it's not possible, but if it were possible, like if there were storefronts across from the Capitol, I would build a guillotine shop and just put it right across the street from the Capitol and have a guillotine right out front as a display and just put mannequins in it. Put the little basket there, and every time a congressman will walk by, I just pull the string and let the blade come down, chop off a mannequin's head, and then just go like that's going to be you in that guillotine. You know, we're not going to do like the French Revolution and drag rich people out into the street and kill them. As much as I talk shit about that, that's not going to happen. But I do predict that someone's going to get hurt really bad over this, because you're taking away our health care. You're taking away our wages. You're taking away our right to vote, right? You're taking away our internet. Something's got to give. There's going to be a tipping point, and when that tipping point happens, someone's going to get hurt. Someone high profile is going to get hurt really bad, and I don't want to see that happen. But if people always talk about like those African countries where there's always like a coup, and like there's a different leader every other month, you know, and they think, well, that could never happen in America. Keep fucking with us. That's all I got to say about that. You don't think it could happen here? You know what we also thought could never happen? September 11th. How'd that work out for us? So that's all I got to say is be careful. Be very careful. Because when you say it can never happen, that's when it usually happens.
There you go. And that's real talk. The horror movies ain't teach y'all that yet? Come on, man. You know what I'm saying? Oh my gosh, I don't believe that happened. Then shut the fuck up. You probably speaking it to fruition when you speak on it like that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Right.
So, what are your final words, Blue?
Vote. Don't forget to vote. And tell anybody you know who isn't voting to vote. You got to be more mindful of who you're voting for. Please start voting. Please start making calls to your representatives and your senators and voice your opinions. I mean, they're going to do what the hell they want to do anyway, but just let them know that what your opinion is or what you find what's wrong or what's right. Even if you like what they're doing, hit them on the hotline with that. If you don't like what they're doing, hit them on the hotline with that. Remember, they supposedly work for the people, but honestly, a lot of them are working for the businesses. But we have to be more vocal in our approach. What's 3 minutes out your day to make a phone call to a representative or a senator or something regarding how you feel about the way they voted or the way you want them to vote? And if they do what they want to do, fine. That means get behind a movement and get them out of here if they doing things that undermine the people. What is it? With they were just saying something about how $38,500 was the tipping point for them to cave in into some money thing that messes up the I guess it was like a merger or something that undermines people's ability to get the cable provider they wanted or something like that. I don't know all the details. But anyways, when it was all said and done, it was pennies in the coffer, but they effed the people up. The people, that was net neutrality. That's exactly what it was.
Oh, okay.
Pennies in the coffer to get it done. And our representatives voted for that BS. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And I always say call, because one of a few things is going to happen. Number one, you get the answer machine. You know, sometimes it might be full. Like Paul Ryan's is always full. I don't think he ever answers his phone. Mm-hmm. Or two, you're at least going to get a representative on the phone. Mm-hmm. I've never spoken to Tom Tillis. I've never spoken to Richard Burr. directly, you know.
Right.
But at least I talk to their people and I let them know, hey, listen, you know, my name is Mercer Prescott. I live in North Carolina, and I would really, I really don't want our reps to vote on this tax bill, you know, or to vote on this or to vote on or health care or anything.
And the Countable app helps you get connected with the people you need to get connected with regarding their voting. The Countable app, COUNTABLE, it tells you who's voting, how they're voting, why they're voting. It asks your opinions about who they're voting. They give you the numbers and contact information regarding who to talk to about what's what. And that app is going to keep you in the know. That's an app approved by POLI-TRICKS.
Yep, exactly. So, all right. That's all I had, brother.
Love. Oh.